I cannot believe how they plead poverty when giving hundreds of millions of dollars to their CEOs. It is disgusting. Shame on them.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Let's go ahead and talk about the actors' strike.
Absolutely.
Really big deal. 160,000 actors went on strike at midnight last Thursday after the studios refused to meet them where they needed to be met. And I want to underline as we open this topic that, you know, when people think actor, they think of people like the current president of the union, Fran Drescher, or they think about Meryl Streep or George Clooney, people like this that, you know, that are wealthy. They got wealthy from their labor as opposed to, you know, parasitically leeching off of the value that other people create by being an owner, but you know, they are wealthy, and so that is kind of the quintessential. That is the archetypal actor. When you think about actor, you only, and it makes sense because these are the only people really that you're exposed to regularly, is the people that who have been wildly successful. But that is not the majority of this union. That's not even a strong minority of the union. Think about the number that I just said, 160,000 people. 160,000 people. There are simply not 160,000 Meryl Streeps, right? Most of these people are working actors making, probably, in fact, less than a lot of the audience makes. Because the work that they do is infrequent, kind of scattershot. And so it's really precarious being a working actor. And so we're not talking about people that are making millions and wanting to make, you know, tens of millions. We're talking about working folks who don't just want, who need their compensation to keep up with the cost of living increases, who need to keep up with inflation, and that need to have work secured for them in the future in the face of threats of theft of their intellectual property by artificial intelligence, and other things. And so, you know, that's not to say that anybody can become an actor with a sustainable livelihood, even under the good old days, right? Even under the good old days, or if they win everything that they're fighting for. This is not to say that everybody can be a middle class actor and make a sustainable living, because by their nature, you know, in entertainment industries are highly competitive because a lot of people want to do that. But there is plenty of money out there to make this a real livelihood for so many that the companies just want to take away. They just want to take away their livelihood for no reason, or you know, because they want more profits. And the people that would suffer the most from this is, of course, the actors, but also consumers who will be deprived of actors that could have come up and could have been stars if they had been given the opportunity, if they had been able to make a living while they were waiting for their big break, right? You know, think about how many people could be, but that could be a good actor, but their environment precludes them from being able to because they just don't make a good enough living, or they haven't had the opportunities. And so the more you decrease compensation for actors, the more it is actually going to become a rich person's profession, because the only people that could afford to only be paid $5,000, $10,000 a year while they're waiting for their big break is people who are wealthy, whose parents are wealthy from something else. And so if we want acting and entertainment to be a career that working people can actually achieve, we have to make it a sustainable career, and that's something, you know, the studios are wanting to take that away. And so the president of SAG-AFTRA, Fran Drescher, who, many of you are going to know from her hit show in the 90s, The Nanny, she gave a really passionate speech as the strike was announced. And she started off, as so many people do when they're announcing a strike, talking about how this is absolutely not what they wanted. The negotiating committee, the union, even the rank and file, they did not go into this saying, I'm going to strike come hell or high water. They can offer us the best deal that I could think of, and I want to go on strike just because I want to show it to these people. That's not how this union or any union, frankly, goes into negotiations. Because strikes are difficult on both parties. And if they can at all be avoided, people want to avoid them. And so so President Drescher, she spoke to that as she opened her statements. Let's listen to this.
I went in earnest, thinking that we would be able to avert a strike. The gravity of this move is not lost on me or our negotiating committee or our board members who have voted unanimously to proceed with a strike. It's a very serious thing that impacts thousands, if not millions of people all across this country and around the world. Not only members of this union, but people who work in other industries that service the people that work in this industry. And so it came with great sadness that we came to this crossroads, but we had no choice. We are the victims here. We are being victimized by a very greedy entity. I am shocked by the way the people that we have been in business with are treating us. I cannot believe it, quite frankly. How far apart we are on so many things. How they plead poverty, that they're losing money left and right when giving hundreds of millions of dollars to their CEOs. It is disgusting. Shame on them. They stand on the wrong side of history at this very moment.
So that was Fran Drescher, president of the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA. I'm forgetting what AFTRA stands for, but a friend of the show, Flash Ferentz, could tell you. He was part of the radio union before it merged with SAG to become SAG-AFTRA. And so, really, passionate and an important way to frame the conversation that they understand that this is going to be difficult not only for them, the people who are making the decision, but also people in the rest of the broader economy, right? So it is really sad that they are being made to do this by these companies. But it's also important to understand that is the reality, that they're being forced into this position by the companies. And that's not something that you're going to see on in the media. And in fact, President Drescher was asked a few times about in multiple places about, aren't you worried about the impact this is going to have on other people? And the person who they need to be asking that to is the CEOs of these studios. Right. Not the representative of 160,000 working actors. But, Bob Iger's not going to be asked that question. We're going to talk about Bob Iger here in a little bit. Here's a little bit of some historical trivia. The actors going on strike at the same time as the writers, that is a very big deal, and it's actually the first time that that's happened since who was the president of SAG-AFTRA? Adam, do you know?
Since who was the president of SAG-AFTRA?
Who was the president of SAG-AFTRA the last time the actors and the writers were on strike together?
Wow. Gosh, I know it's been more than half a century, so I'm not really sure who was the president at that time. The only, my mind went to Boris Karloff, but he was probably that was before his.
No, Ronald Reagan.
Oh my God! No.
Ronald Reagan led
Really?
SAG-AFTRA into a strike with the writers. Actually, He was at the head. Some people say that James Garner, the executive vice president, did all the work, wrote all the speeches. I would not doubt that.
I would not either.
Which would also make sense because, the way that, for you to be able to shift so quickly from leading a historic strike, quote unquote, a historic strike, to being the most anti-union president in half a century. The only way you could do that is if you really have no kind of guiding compass and you're just like reading scripts. What
oh, absolutely. Yeah, he had been on the take for a long time by that point.
So immediately after that, and immediately after the union won a lot for those actors, he began working for GE to talk about how, how unions are bad. He also worked for the American Medical Association, talking about how it would be bad if every American had health insurance. Just a real, I was about to say freak. My wife doesn't like it when I say freak. She says that's not a good word. So a real bad guy. Bad guy. The strike is also historic for having been the biggest strike vote in the union's history, the highest percentage of people voting in favor. And President Drescher spoke to some of those issues that are at stake here that make it unique, but also the same as everything else that's going on in labor right now. Let's listen to that clip.
We are fortunate enough to be in a country right now that happens to be labor friendly. And yet we were facing opposition that was so labor unfriendly, so tone deaf to what we are saying. You cannot change the business model as much as it has changed and not expect the contract to change too. We're not going to keep doing incremental changes on a contract that no longer honors what is happening right now with this business model that was foisted upon us. What are we doing? Moving around furniture on the Titanic? It's crazy. So the jig is up, AMPTP. We stand tall. You have to wake up and smell the coffee. We are labor and we stand tall and we demand respect and to be honored for our contribution. You share the wealth because you cannot exist without us. Thank you.
That's exactly right. And, some of the stuff that she spoke to, like I said, is specific to actors, artificial intelligence, residuals, streaming services, how that has upended the industry. But the crux of it is the same as she laid out at the beginning of her speech. The crux of it is really the same as any of these other stories at UPS, at at the Big Three with the UAW, any of these. The crux is you've got these people at the very top who are not actually creating the value for the company, who are taking all of the money for themselves. A lot of these people, the shareholders, the executive, the CEO, you could say there is potentially some work that a CEO does. There's a role for an administrative person at the top of the company. But the CEOs or the shareholders, they literally don't do anything, right? They just have money and make money because of that. And they want to take more of the value that we create for themselves. And that's the crux of it. That's the crux of it. Whether it's the actors, the writers, UPS drivers, GM workers, all of it. It's the same. These people who are sitting on piles of money want to steal more from us. So that's really the gist of it. So obviously all solidarity to the actors and the writers, and we're going to continue to cover the story. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project. And you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.